Welcome to Snow White with the Red Hair. The anime follows along with Snow White with the red hair, getting some weed so that she can give it to Snoop Dogg and he can smoke it. And she opens up with a monologue saying that she wants to create her own path in life. Then we cut to this gay-ass prince where he received a message that his stalker found the fairest pussy of them all. We then see Snow White working as a drug lord giving some weed medications to these old people.
Yeah.
Then one of the bodyguards delivered a message to her that the prince wants her to be his personal side chick and she will be a royalty, and he gives her a day to prepare her pussy. She starts having some existential crisis and she starts cooking some weed and she put it on these envelopes and she cuts her hair. She leaves the kingdom and goes on a journey where she finds this abandoned house where she rested for the night. She wakes up the next morning and saw low budget Gintoki doing a failed parkour compilation. And these two cunts follows him. They ask her some questions where Snow White offered him to heal his hand, but he refuses because he doesn't want to be involved in their drug smuggling activities. But she convinced him by hurting her own hand and applying this cum ointment. Disgusting! He introduced himself as Zen, like the god kids from Dragon Ball Super. She treated his arm and they go on for a walk, where she told him the reason on why she ran away, because the prince in her kingdom wants her to be his personal sex doll. As they head back, a basket full of apples were left in their doorsteps, and Snow White noticed the ribbon she used to tie her hair. Zeno-sama takes a bite of the apple and he told her not to eat it because it's poison. Then Mr. Bodyguard arrives and tells her to come with him and he will give them the antidote. She meets up with the gay prince and begs him for the antidote, but he'll only give it to her if she accepts to become his personal sex doll. She takes the deal, but low-budget Gintoki spoiled the moment and he objected on letting her become his personal sex doll. Zeno introduced himself as the second prince of the neighboring kingdom. He then explains that he's developed some kind of resistance to these basic kinds of poison. That's why he can still move. He then challenged the gay prince to a duel for Snow White's vajayjay, but he pussied out. Then Zeno-sama and Snow White told him to fuck off so that they wouldn't blackmail him for his sexual abuse.
Okay.
She thanks Zen for saving her and he says, "Nah, don't sweat it, toots. I think fate brought us together. Kinda like stand users are attracted to each other." And she accepts his stand to work together as a partner. The next day comes where she applied to become a pharmacist in this pharmacy, but the manager told her to take the annual pharmacist exam first so that he can determine if she's worthy enough to be hired. And she saw this Shota buying some drugs to become the next Pablo Escobar.
Kailangan mo meter 500.
She meets up with Zeno-sama and they go to the pier so that Snow White can study some more weeds in order to pass her exams. She rides this ship and goes to the secluded island and she finds some more drugs to snort. Jack Sparrow knocks her out and kidnaps her. He told her that any horny prince would love her as their sex doll. The next day comes where Jack Sparrow brought some food but she pretended to be asleep. Then she knocks this barrel and locks him in. She tries to find an escape route but Jack Sparrow locked all the windows and doors. She gets cornered and starts cooking some drugs Breaking Bad style. As he approached her, she used some weed smoke to paralyze his body. She escaped through a window in the second floor, but Jack Sparrow managed to catch up to her. He was about to peg her with a torch but Zeno-sama saves her. Jack tells them that he doesn't want to harm her because he's only in it for the money. Zeno takes him to the authorities and arrests him for charges of kidnapping. And Snow White gives him some coke to snort it on his way to prison. Snow White thanks Zeno and he tells her that that's what friends are for. Snow White meets up with Zeno again because his bodyguards thought that he's getting stressed out on being a prince. Wow, what a privileged thing to say. Then we see these perverts stalking them. Zeno wakes up where Draco Malfoy told him to stop inviting some peasants into the palace because women these days are mostly gold diggers.
A real man shouldn't act like this.
But he replied that she's different because she's studying to become a drug lord. This pissed off Draco Malfoy and he told this hitman to prevent Snow White from seeing the prince. Snow White goes back to the castle to get her weed encyclopedia. Then hitman dude shoots an arrow to stop her from taking another step. Jesus Christ, she almost got headshot right there. But she still moves on and luckily stumbles onto Zeno-sama. Then Snow White told him that she wants to confront the person that's trying to assassinate her. She meets up with Draco Malfoy and says, "Excuse me Draco, I'm not like any other Twitch thoughts who loves to shake their asses in front of Sims for money. I have a dream and I want to be the next Pablo Escobar."
500.
Draco stands down and both him and the hitman confess their crimes to the prince on trying to assassinate Snow White. Then Draco got shamed by the prince for having no balls, and this makes him accept that Snow White can come anytime in the castle because of her gigantic balls to face his sword. Snow White gives Zeno an application to become the castle's next drug lord so that she can run drugs into America like Pablo Escobar. The day of the drug test comes where she took the exam and she got locked into this greenhouse along with Zen. You window licking spastic. It's made out of glass. You can easily break it and escape and no one will blame you for it because you're the goddamn prince. Anyway, she noticed that the weeds are getting poisoned and she lets Zen help with the transplanting in order to save the weeds. The next day comes as they've finished transplanting and this hot professor saw them and told them that it was the drug lord Shota's idea so that he can test if someone's worthy enough to be the next Pablo Escobar. Because she solved this puzzle, hot lady professor accepted her as a drug lord apprentice. Yeah! And she makes her as the Shota's assistant, kinda like Walter White and Jesse, and they start cooking. Snow White sees his medical record book and it's about low budget Gintoki having health issues and he gets treated by trying all the drugs from weed, ecstasy, coke, and to LSD and it cured him. The Shota saw this and he told the prince and he hugs her for being thoughtful. Zeno goes to this boot camp which is plagued by COVID,
Kung Flu.
where they inspected the place and gathered some info on what happened. Then bodyguard Nightier fetched Snow White to heal the sick soldiers. Then she also gets sick on these nuts and by using her big beautiful brain, she deduced that the firewoods are the one causing the soldiers to get tuberculosis. We see her doing some paperwork as she slowly gets weaker, but Assassin Dude was there to catch her when she nearly collapsed and she told him to not tell anyone because it would demoralize everyone. Zeno lets Snow White rest as they go attack the bandits who stole their weapons. They win the fight and Zeno wakes up Snow White and he tells her to not push herself because they need her abilities as a drug lord and he also needs her minge.
Are you sure about that?
And they leave the boot camp where everyone is cured. A few days pass by where Snow White is officially a drug lord working in the castle. She gets summoned into this private room and she eavesdrops on Zeno talking to his big brother Howl, where he heard the news about their boot camp getting treated from COVID while he was away with his moving castle, and he tells Zen that he should have punished their soldiers for their incompetence, but because he didn't punish them, he's the one that's getting the belt. Howl reveals Snow White from the curtain and Zen tells her to save her virginity for him. Then Howl tells her that Zen is just a horny little virgin for bringing a slut from another kingdom into their castle. We cut to the next day where Howl invited some satanic rich people into the castle to celebrate his return, including the fuckboy prince from episode 1. And he says, I heard that Snow White's hometown is your kingdom. Now she works here as a drug lord and Zen keeps banging her every night while smoking some weed. It would have been nice if she didn't run away, right? Snow White heard all of this and she gets back to the castle, but fuckboy prince replied that he doesn't want a slut in his kingdom. We then see Snow White contemplating about staying in the castle because she just wants to be the next Pablo Escobar and Zen can help her achieve her dreams, which gives her the motivation to stay. The pair hugs each other and Snow White tells Zen that she wants to stay by his side so that she can continue on smuggling drugs into America. Zen tells her the backstory of him and his brother, on how he admired him because he's like light Yagami, because he always thinks one step ahead of everyone.
I'll take a potato chip and eat it.
Then some boring romance stuff happens, which I can't relate because I'm all alone in my parents' basement watching this anime at 3 AM in the morning. But not anymore because I see a white girl standing right there in the corner of the room, but that's irrelevant. Zen spars with Howl while convincing him to let Snow White stay in the castle, and he replied that he doesn't have time to talk to drug lord bitches like her. Snow White stumbles onto the fuckboy prince and he was about to drink this ointment for his stomach ache, but she stopped him and she says that he needs to have a checkup because it may be an appendicitis. Fuckboy prince leaves and Howl shows up and he says, why won't you leave this castle and become his personal fuck doll? I wanna achieve my dreams and become the next Pablo Escobar, and I can't do it without the help of your horny brother. They do a standoff where she didn't flinch and Howl gives her a smooch for being a brave little girl. Fuck, this is why I hate this kind of thing, because if handsome people like him do it, it's romantic, but if a spastic like EDP would do it, it's sexual harassment. Now I understand why women would run away to the nearest police station if they see me 10 feet away, because I'm not a handsome prince and I look like a crackhead Jabba the Hutt. Anyway, we cut to this scene where Zen assigns Assassin Dude to be Snow White's bodyguard, because people might put a bounty on her head if they heard that Snow White's gonna be the next Pablo Escobar. Assassin Dude helps her, and after collecting some weed, Zeno overheard the pair talking about him, if Snow White would be happy if Zen isn't a prince. But she brushed off the conversation and tells him to shut the fuck up. We then see Zen contemplating about his royal status, and we see this flashback of him where he isn't allowed to make any friends because of his royal status, but he secretly meets this peasant boy to have a secret yaoi relationship with him.
What are you, fucking gay?
Then one day the boy gets pegged by some bandits and they were about to kill Zen next, but Kevin Costner and Hal shows up to fight the bandits. As the fight goes on, yaoi boy was about to shoot Zen with an arrow, but Kevin Costner kills him to save Zen, and this is the reason why he can't be a gay anymore. We then see Assassin Dude still doing his bodyguard job on Snow White, like that movie with Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner. Assassin Dude noticed a spy and he intercepted the letter, as the spy throws it off the wall, and the guards arrested the spy. Snow White shares to Assassin Dude that she feels guilty on being near to low-budget Gintoki because it affects his royal status on being friends with the drug lord. She also says that she wants to go back to the boot camp to check on the soldiers if they're free from COVID.
Kung Flu?
Then he replied that she doesn't need to because he's been there, and their medic gave her some exotic weed so that she can use it in the future. Snow White passes out because of drug overdose like that scene in Pulp Fiction. Zeno rushed to find the pair, and Assassin Dude tells him that she got drunk because of alcohol. The pair chats for a bit while opening a bottle of wine, and Assassin Dude tells him that Snow White really cares for her patients and having the motivation to become the next Pablo Escobar. Zeno thanks him for being her bodyguard throughout the day, and he gives him his shoot-to-kill license so that people can identify him as the kingdom's hitman and help him protect the people who are important to him as he do his prince duties. We cut to a few days where Snow White harvested some weeds and saw this bird whisperer. They talked to her, and the reason why she's here is because she wants to ask the prince for help on stopping this noble mole rat on poaching these exotic birds for their rare feathers. We jump to this scene where bird whisperer girl and the rich mole rat meets Zeno, and he declared by the order of royal decree that the two of them should coexist along the island. And we see Zeno telling his bodyguard that he can't do anything about it because they're rich. Then Snow White shows up to spill some beans. Zeno meets up with Bird Girl again, and he asks her if she can really control the birds, and she showed him the stone that can control them, and he makes her a deal to use her birds as drug couriers, and they'll do some tests tomorrow to see if it's legit. If it's successful, he might give her the island so that they can produce more bird couriers. She asks Snow White to take part on the experiment, and she agreed. The experiment starts where Snow White waits for the bird in this watchtower along with the rich mole rat. The rich mole rat makes a deal to Snow White to sabotage this experiment, and he will help her on controlling the drug trade throughout the kingdom.
Not bad, not bad.
But she refuses, and the mole rat grabs the bell and threw it onto the lake. She jumps onto the window along with Assassin Dude, and they try to find the stone. The bird finally arrives in the watchtower. Then Snow White dives deeper and found the stone, and with 2 minutes left, the bird clutched out a game-saving delivery, just like Stephen Curry. And Zeno officially announced the mass production of bird couriers. Zen rushed to the watchtower, and this guard spilled the beans on how the mole rat tried to sabotage the experiment. Well, what a fucking idiot, mole rat. You should have made a deal when no one was around so that you can easily deal with her after the experiment so that she wouldn't tell anyone. Moving on, Zen goes to Snow White to see if she's okay, and they mouth sex.
What are you doing?
The next day comes where Zeno accompanied Lady Bird back to her island so that he can give the land title of the island to the natives, and they can mass produce courier birds, and he will give the money to start this project. They have some party, and we see Zeno talking to Kevin Costner on how he mouth sex Snow White.
Don't care.
They go home where they see Snow White, and she ran to the forest because she doesn't want to get molested again. Zeno follows her, and they talk for a bit about the courier project. Then Snow White confessed her feelings to him, but she's afraid to love him because she might ruin his royal status, and the Commonwealth pigs might judge them as a couple, like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. But Zeno told her that fuck society, and he will leave the royal family just to be with her, so that they can have their own privacy and go to every talk show in America.
We want privacy! We want privacy!
And they mouth sexed again. The castle throws a festival inside their gates where the gang visits all the vendors. Then Kevin Costner and Lady Bodyguard told Snow White to take care of Zen's balls because this is the first time that someone accepted him. Zen goes to the royal balcony and waved back at the Commonwealth pigs along with his brother Howl. Then Snow White's imposter syndrome kicks in again if she deserves to be Zen's lover.
Sussy baka.
We jump to this scene where Snow White and the Shota tries to patch up this lady's ankle because she's an actress and wants to finish their role play. But the director saw her red hair, and he tells her to sub in for the actress. She agreed and changed her clothes. Then the director decides to change the script and reveal her red hair to the Commonwealth pigs and kiss her for the finale. But Zen doesn't want to get cocked, and he takes part onto the play.
I will spare no thought.
And he saved himself from getting cocked. The play ends, and we see the couple having a lovey-dovey moment, and they watch some floating lanterns as the festival ends. And that's the end of the anime. And I'll rate this anime better than the live action.
The guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.